open up your Bibles and follow along with us this morning. We'll be looking at a number of passages, and we'll be talking about kind of a unique sin and lesson that I've never really preached specifically on this subject before, but been thinking about it the last couple of months for a number of different reasons. But one of the things that was pointed out to me a couple weeks ago in a news report that I was listening to, the AGA, or the American Gaming Association, in December of 2024, so this is fairly recent results, shows that adults in the U.S. who have partaken in gambling is up to 55%. And that's frequently. That's not one or two times. That's frequently partake in the habit of gambling. It is estimated that over 1 trillion, with a T, that is not an exaggeration, was wagered in bets last year alone. That's 4% of our nation's GDP. That alone is terrifying to hear. And over 80% of it was lost. It's not a winner's sport. It's not something that people go into and they engage in and they come out well. It is a real problem and sin in this country that over half of the population, and again, this is reportedly, this is not people that don't talk about it, reportedly engage in frequently. I can't turn on the TV. I can't open up any kind of social media. I can't go, and most of you know I'm not a huge sports fan, but my wife and I like to go to like a hockey game a couple of times a year. It's a fairly cheap date. We don't go to NHL. We go to the lower leagues, and you can't look hardly at any section of any kind of sporting arena or anything without seeing advertisements for this plastered everywhere. It's a huge problem. It's one that, as I've talked to over the years, many Christians have fallen prey to, fallen into, and make a whole lot of excuses as to why it's okay. And so this morning I want to talk about what the cost of gambling is, the sin that is associated with it, whether it be something that you partake in and you want to talk about it. I'm here to listen, I'm here to help. Whether it be something that we need to have in our back pocket that we can address because it is a widespread problem in this country, and maybe more so than we thought. We need to be prepared to answer those things because the Bible does speak at length about it. And so first and foremost, we need to talk about what it is and define gambling. It is the wagering of money or something of material value on an event with an uncertain outcome. And here's one of the big kickers of it too, with the intent to win and others to lose. People will play down the term gambling to try and talk about it in the extent of, well, anything has a chance in life, and we'll talk about that argument here in a moment. But gambling is with the intent, I'm going to wager something of some kind of value, and I'm planning to win, and everyone else lose, and that's really the only scenario here. It's what gambling ultimately usually boils down to. Whether it be horse racing, casinos, slot machines, sports betting, lottery, games of chance. People have wagered on things like the election and everything under the sun. There are betting websites and algorithms and things that you can partake in that you can bet on just about literally anything, anywhere. It's how far down this rabbit hole goes and how deep this problem comes up. And sometimes you see things like gambling or casinos or things like it, but a lot of places will use terms like gaming. Because, well, gambling, even among non-Christians, does have some negative connotation. The newscaster that I was listening to that gave me that report that I first kind of stumbled down this rabbit hole, on top of some other things I had seen with the AGA, he said, now I think you've noticed in recent years, I'm not taking a gambling sponsorship because the more and more I see of it, the less I think it's a good thing to, advertise on my platform and everything. But I still partake in it in a safe manner. It's a hobby, it's gaming, it's luxury, it's entertainment. is the type of language that will get used around this, because we want to downplay how dangerous it is, how addictive it is, how scary it is, and the type of people that frequently go too far. Recently went up to Austintown for a gospel meeting or a singing or something, and if you go to Austintown for one of their meetings or something, you will pass, and my nerdy self sees advertisements for gaming. My nerdy self goes, oh cool, there must be some kind of card shop or game store, maybe there's an arcade, what's down there? And I go just a mile down the road and know it's a giant casino. Because I grew up in Kentucky where, gambling was still a thing, but it was forbidden. It was against the law to advertise any kind of gambling on the road. It was back corner of a drugstore that you had to go behind a curtain to go and play a quarter slot. That's what's mostly in Kentucky. I didn't see the big advertisements for gambling in Kentucky because it's not a thing. And when you see things like gaming and things like that, and we try to downplay it, why do you think they changed the term to that? Because they want to make it look as friendly as possible. States that allow gambling or encourage it usually refer to it as gaming to soften that word, which even much of the world recognizes has a negative connotation. Some religions even have encouraged in the past, or still encourage gambling. I've passed churches that advertise fundraising events through gambling. This is coming from Dwayne Carpenter, who's a writer for the Boston Globe, in a big article I took a couple points from, talked about Christmas, Hanukkah, and Catholic days have been set aside for gambling in many quote-unquote Christian religions, Catholicism, and Judaism. There are days set apart in many religions specifically for, here are days that you can gamble. And it's baked into the religion. That's a problem. It's a sin. It's an addiction. And it's a way in which many have tried to justify even the quote-unquote religious as to why it's okay, why it's not that dangerous, why it's not that bad. Arguments that get used for gambling over and over is things like, well, life is a gamble. Every day you wake up and I never know whether I'm going to be alive, so what's the harm? And I've even heard Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11 taken out of context and used to support this argument. Again, Solomon wrote, I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. Well, time and chance, that's something that happens to everybody, so therefore, what's the harm with gambling? The problem is you take Ecclesiastes 9 grossly out of context, where Solomon is talking about the fact that, hey, doesn't matter if you're strong, people still lose. Doesn't matter if you're swift, people still lose the race. Doesn't matter if you're wise, doesn't matter if you're rich. Bad things happen to us all. Vanity is vanities. Solomon's argument is the opposite of for gambling. It's talking about how useless this world is in chasing after its treasures. That moth and rust destroy. That no matter how strong you are, no matter how wise you are, no matter how great you are, time and chance happens to us all. Disaster strikes. It's not an argument for gambling. The harm is you're chasing after things that are vain and that are useless. The reality is life is much less of a gamble than we sometimes make it out to be. Yes, there are things of chance that happen to us all. Sometimes bad luck, sometimes things happen. Sometimes good luck, sometimes things happen. But a lot of it could also be boiled down to providence of if the Lord wills, like 1 Corinthians 4:19, or as James 4 and verse 15 talks about. Instead, we ought to say, if the Lord wills. So I often say, Sunday afternoon, see you tonight, Lord willing. There's a lot of God's providence, there's a lot of God's comfort that He can protect us and He can help us, but if He decides my time is up, then it's up. There's a lot less chance in life that we as Christians should understand. We should be aware of. Don't fall prey to that argument. Don't fall prey to the argument that, well, it's just going to happen, so you might as well let it happen. One I grew up hearing a lot in a farming community is that, well, farming is a gamble, so what's wrong with gambling my money? I plant seeds. I don't know how the weather's going to act in the spring and in the summer and in the fall. I don't know what animals are going to do. I don't know how the bugs are going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen this year. Maybe I got a bad batch of seeds, and it's not going to yield the report and the food and whatever flock I want. So what's wrong with it? Well, the promise of God in places like Genesis 8 and verse 22 is that while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. That's not a gamble. You'll have bad crops and you'll have bad years. But that's not gambling. That's not, I sow my field, and my field has to yield its fruit and its harvest, and everyone else has to fail. That's what gambling would look like. I'm not taking a gamble on providing for my food and providing for my family and growing anything in my yard or in my backyard or in my farm. Or as Psalms 104 and verse 14, you, being God, cause the grass to grow for the livestock, plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth. God has put this earth in motion. God is helping us. God is watching out for us. And while he's not going to directly, as he did sometimes in the Old Testament, especially when Israel sinned, cause harvests to fail as openly and tell us, it's by his grace, it's by his power that all things continue, day in and day out, year in and year out, harvest in and harvest out. But especially surrounded by farmers and in a state that is known for the Kentucky Derby, a lot of tax money comes in because of the Kentucky Derby. These are arguments that I grew up hearing a lot. Justifications for this sin that I heard all year round by both non-Christians and unfortunately sometimes Christians alike. But there is a harm in it. This got into a heated men's study one time. Well, investing is a gamble. I mean, there is certainly some risk associated with investments. Companies can fail, investments can fail. It's not quite a gamble, though, if you remember our definition. It's not that I win and everyone else fails. In fact, if that's what happens, your investment's going to fail too. If the rest of the economy crashes except one company, you're not going to be any well off. You're not going to succeed. You're not going to be okay. When you read Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 down through verse 30, it's the parable of the 10 talents, and the master gives talents, some to one man, some to another, and finally one to the last one. And when you get especially down to verse 24 and pick up there, Matthew 25 and verse 24, the master has come back. He who had received the 1 talent came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid. I went in, I hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him and said, You wicked and lazy or slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I had scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, give it to him who has 10 talents. Is preparing for the future and investing, risking it all on an unsure thing, on an unsure outcome, hoping that others lose and that I succeed? No, there is a risk involved. Yes, with investing our money, with preparing for the future. There's a risk involved, Jesus, I think, is even primarily pointing out, in investing in other souls. Sometimes you teach and you preach and you work with people and you give them the gospel, and sometimes they grow, they multiply, they do well, and sometimes they fall by the wayside. The seed get eaten. They are like Demas. They go back to this world. They forsake Christ. Does that mean the time was a gamble? Does that mean the investment was useless? Is that then justifying that we can go take our money and gamble it on anything and everything? No, that's taking things grossly out of context and misconstruing what God says. Or Proverbs 13 and verse 11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Put the work in. Put the time in. You can make investments. You can take care of your family. You can take care of what needs to be done and plan for the future. If the Lord wills, I reach an old age. I reach my retirement. I took care of provisions. I planned ahead for those things, and it didn't come up and sneak up upon me. Doesn't mean gamble and just hope that everything works out. Finally here, it's my money. I can do with it what I want. And it's forgetting the idea that we are stewards. That first and foremost, it doesn't even belong to us. It's God's. But ultimately, the problem that especially comes up with gambling and the problem that comes up with this attitude is one of covetousness, it's one of greed, it's one of a focus on earthly things. Whereas Luke 12 and verse 15 warns, take care. Be on guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist of the abundance of his possessions. The danger of gambling that comes up when these kind of attitudes start to begin to be justified is that I'm focusing on earthly things. I'm focusing on earthly pleasures. I'm coveting what is not mine and what I believe I cannot by my power inherit, so I might as well risk it all and hope to win it big. Rather than be a good steward of God's money. Rather than take care of myself and my family, be satisfied with what I can earn. And it comes about in a lot of different ways that it comes forth. One of the big ones being casinos. We've already mentioned them briefly, even close to home. What's the big phrase that you hear about casinos? The house always wins. Would casinos be a multi-trillion-dollar industry if the house didn't always win? No. But then the next thing you will hear out of most people that walk into a casino is, yeah, but I figured it out. I know the game. I know the tactics. I know the machine. I know the table. I know how to count cards. I know how I can go in and I can beat the system. Boy, sounds an awful lot like Obadiah that we just read about on Wednesday night a couple of weeks ago. Sounds like a real big problem of pride. When people try to go into these multi-trillion-dollar companies, to go in, to beat the system, to do better than anybody else ever did, and I'll be the one exception. I won't fall prey. I won't sin. I won't lose my life and my livelihood. I'll be okay. God has answered that type of attitude all over Scripture. Obadiah 1, beginning in verse 3, the pride of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rock in your lofty dwelling, who say in your heart, who will bring me down to the ground? Though you soar aloft like eagles, though your nest is set among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord. The warning that I hear about casinos over and over is never bet more than you're willing to lose. Which, I mean, that's good advice if you're going to get into that mess. But still not righteous advice. And it's advice that I have heard folks give over the years and then turn around and not follow it. They go in with a set amount. I'm going to bet this much. I'm going to go into Las Vegas or Austintown or wherever it may be, or the quarter slots behind the gas station, and I've gone in with this much, I will spend no more. They lose all that, and well, I've been on a streak, but I got to win eventually. What's a little bit more? What's a little farther? What do I have to lose? And they get humbled. They lose their livelihood. They risk it all. And time again, they pay the price. That's the cost. That's the problem. But more than casinos, lottery is a huge, in every state, a huge way that people fall prey. Primarily, historically and statistically, it has been one that has preyed upon the weakest and the poorest in our states and in our country. It's people that wholeheartedly believe, I will not be okay, I will not make it, I will forever be stuck in poverty, and there's nothing I can do unless I risk it all and I win big. And I've heard those things from friends of mine's very own mouth over the years, over and over and over again. I remember Dad getting into a heated, I'll say discussion, with a coworker at work, and we were there visiting him on lunch, and he was talking about retirement, and the guy was saying, well, that's a waste, that's a gamble, that's useless. My retirement is one day I'm going to win the lottery. And I put 30% of my check in every month into the lottery, and one day I'm going to win. But he mocked Dad for putting, 10 or 12% of his check or whatever every month into a Roth IRA and saving up in the company matching that percentage. It was someone who's delusional, who believed that they'll win big. And the problem is, even if you do win big, it often doesn't go well. I had a coworker at Arby's who won the Powerball in Kentucky. She won over $1 million. Within a year, she was back working at Arby's. Had lost and spent it all. Still never learned the lesson. And every time I'd go out to my car after work, her car would be there and the floorboard would be scattered with more lottery tickets that she kept trying to win again. She spent it all. She gave it away. She lived riotously. She lived the high life for a little less than a year, and then was right back to, I don't know what to do. And she was saddled with a hefty IRA debt, or IRS debt, that she didn't pay off of her winnings for the rest of her life. On top of continuing to blow it away and hope that I'll win again. My life will be okay, and it will be better. Her family cut her off. Her kids were hungry. They didn't have food to put on the table. They did for a few months, and then it went away. 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8, if anyone does not provide for his own relatives, and especially the members of his own household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. This is not a retirement scheme. This is not taking care of your family. This is not being wise. This is being foolish. And most people who come into a lot of money like that suddenly, one, made a bad investment in the first place. And then two, very often, they're already so addicted. They're already so stuck in that mindset. Well, I won once. Surely it's got to happen again. And they fall right back down into the pit. It's a great deception that Satan has used. The one I talked about at the beginning of the lesson, the industry in sports gambling, has always been a thing. The Kentucky Derby has been around for, I didn't look this up, I don't know how long. Gambling on sports and the racetracks and everything else has been a colloquial term for hundreds of years. But here's the one part of it that While the sin has not changed, the access to it sure seems to have. When you used to have to go gamble your life away, you had to go down to the horse tracks. You had to go find the locations that made a business out of this. You had to go out of your way if you wanted to get rid of money quickly. But now, I could pull out my phone and probably within 2 minutes, I could have my bank account signed up. I could be signed up to DraftKings, FanDuel, ESPN Bet, Caesars, MGM, which by the way is owned by Disney, or any number of companies. Have my bank account signed up and emptied within minutes. That wouldn't be hard to do. That's how easy it is to get access to this stuff nowadays, and that's how scary it is to get access to this nowadays. Any kind of major company, for the most part, has their own apps, has their own way of betting, has their own way of gambling on sports or something else. And it's not hard to find. It's not hard to turn on the television or go to an event or turn on the radio, and they've got some major star or personality that is advertising these things and is talking about how you too can win big. Major platforms like YouTube and Twitch, which are primarily aimed at kids and young people, have gotten into hot water recently because they pay popular streamers or different personalities on there, advertise our gambling websites, and we will send you a website and we will hack your account so that you roll, you bet, you gamble, you open these boxes, and you can win big, and you're going to win. You're not actually going to win anything, but we're going to make it look like you win so that young people go get addicted to the same thing. And we didn't hack their account so that they win. You're going to win. So that you're going to make it look, it's just that easy to win this money and to win these things. It's a conniving industry that preys upon people, that devours them and gets you addicted. And it's not just on, well, all right, sports, well, this team is going to win and this team's going to lose, so that's the bet I'm going to make. That's not even where it stops. You can make bets all throughout the game. There were advertisements for this at the hockey game. Bet on which player is going to hit the next goal. Bet on how different the score is going to be. Is it going to be 2 points apart? Is it going to be 4 points apart? Is it going to be 5 points apart by the end of the game? Get your bets in now before halftime starts. Every little aspect is monetized and advertised. Bet for it, get involved in it, and you'll win. And it's not just go down to the racetracks with the money in your wallet, and once you lose it, it's out. Most of these apps, you tie your bank account straight into it. You can tie your credit cards straight into it. Within seconds, the money from your account will be on the app so that you can gamble. But if you win, it takes 7 days for a withdrawal. You know why that is? Is we want you to stick around and hopefully use that money again. And multiple companies have gotten into trouble where it's a 7-day policy to withdraw. So you try and go withdraw it. I did win something. I go to try and withdraw it, and the company comes in, no, there was a mistake in our system. You didn't actually win that, so we're going to take that money back. And they've had to go to court to fight this. Because you're not supposed to win. You're not supposed to earn anything out of that. You're supposed to give us money, and you're not supposed to get anything out of this. It reminds me over and over of the enemies of Israel in places like Jeremiah 30 and verse 16. Therefore, all who devour you shall be devoured. All your foes, every one of them shall go into captivity. Those who plunder you shall be plundered, and all who prey upon you I will make prey. The men and women and companies that run these type of businesses will answer to God. But you cannot get in bed with them, and you will not win. You will not come out ahead. They are in this business because it is a business that they're going to win and you're going to lose. Whether it be big, or we even touched on this a little bit with some of the sports gambling and stuff, Micro bets has been a big thing that has been started to be advertised. Again, this isn't a new concept. It used to be something like I ran into in Crab Orchard. You go down to the corner store and you go get a pizza or you go get a drink, and someone would say, hey, bet me $5 what color car is going to come around the corner next. Usually that was coming from someone who was already deep in this and they're just trying to win anything. I had a boss that was like that at Arby's that would bet on anything. Bet me $2, is it going to be a man, a woman that comes in the door next? It was a sad, pitiful state to see somebody in. But now they're starting to advertise this as something friendly. What's a $5 bet? You spend that much on a coffee. What's a $5 bet on this? Sign up. We'll give you $50 that you can make $5 bets in increments and keep betting, and it's free money. Because we want you to make these small, little investments, these small, little bets, so that you start to warm up to the feeling of winning, of feeling good, of getting something back. And so now that I'm comfortable giving small bets, I'll just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until I lose everything. Why do you think quarter slots at the casinos are usually the most populated machine? Because there's been a quarter sitting on my back porch for weeks now and I still haven't picked it up. A quarter isn't worth much. But I can keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, and that adds up quick. It saps away my livelihood. The devil is conniving. We need to be sober-minded. We need to be watchful because our adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. These companies, they're servants of Satan. They know these tactics. They know what works. They know what corrupts people. A newer one, although it's, even again, same tactics, cryptocurrencies and meme coins, is maybe a term you've heard before, has been a problem. It's just been another form of gambling that's come around. While I'm not going to be knowledgeable enough or say that all cryptocurrency is sinful, a big portion of it has been known to be a scam. With the promise that, well, it's just a meme, it's just a joke, it's just a potential investment that if you invest big, it might one day be worth something. Buy a few of these cryptocurrencies for $1,000+ a pop. Invest in it, and then when it hits the market, maybe if you sell quick enough, maybe if you take advantage of this, you'll come out ahead. Look at how many people invested in crypto years ago and are now multimillionaires. You could be next. The problem is over 95% of these companies are the same people that keep starting up new companies over and over and over again. It's just insider trading, but in a new form. They sell before you ever can. They pump up the price as high as they can, and they dump their investments as quick as they can and leave you holding the bag, your life savings down the drain. They're richer, and we're going to go and do it again. It's just 3-card Monte or the marble in a cup over and over again. You could win big. It's just a game. You never know. You might as well try. And you're going to keep losing over and over and over again. It's infiltrated gaming for kids on some of the most popular games that are out there. It's infiltrated parts of our lives over and over, everywhere. Early on, they're trying to get people addicted. They're trying to make it okay. They're trying to make it seem as friendly as possible. When the reality is, the danger is, the states that have allowed gambling, debt collection goes up by 10%. Bankruptcies go up by 30%. It's not a winner's game. It's not a lucky game. It's a loser's game. Even scarier than that, 50% that gamble suffer suicidal thoughts. And 1 in 5 will attempt at least once. Because when your life savings disappears in a single click, and your life, your worth, is valued only on what is on this earth, and it disappears like that, what do you have to live for? Who could you possibly face? How could you tell your family that you did this? This is where the road very often goes. This is the sad, terrible truth that many fall prey to. Because their investment is on things of this earth that moth and rust destroy. They fall prey to Satan, to his temptations, and they believe, I'll be the one person that can gamble, that can play with Satan, that can go against the odds, and I'll be the one to come out okay. And that just simply is not the case. The cost of gambling is that it goes against God's very own idea of how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to work. 1 Thessalonians, Paul talked about this. Our goal is to aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, to work with your hands as we instructed you, so that you may walk properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one. Work an honest wage, earn your living, be able to help others, be able to take care of yourself and your family. Don't depend on maybe one day I'll get lucky. Maybe one day I'll be the one that wins. And very often, lose it all. More often than not, gambling is not being a good steward of God's money, and it takes away our ability to help and to serve one another. 1 Peter 4 and verse 10 that we read a few weeks ago. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now that's talking partly about spiritual things, but it's also talking about physical things. Use the blessings that God has given you to help one another, to serve one another, to be useful in the kingdom. Don't waste it and blow it all away. You lower your ability to serve God and your opportunities when you fall prey to this sin. More often than not, it comes from really a place of greed. 1 Timothy 6 is a familiar passage, and it's one that many of you probably thought inevitably is going to come up in a lesson like this. Those who desire to be rich fall into temptation. It starts there with that desire. I want to be rich. I want to be wealthy. I want to earn something that I didn't work for. I want to be the one to hit the jackpot. I want to be the one that beats the odds. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desire. They plunge people into ruin and into destruction. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves through with many pains. It's that desire that we look at the world, that we want to be like them, that we want to be wealthy, that many Christians have fallen prey to this. People don't gamble because they want a modest living. People don't gamble because I want a paycheck like I get every week or every 2 weeks that I can take care of myself and my family and put food on the table. People gamble because they love money. They love the thrill. They love the things of this world. And gambling is just going to exploit you. It's going to use you up and spit you out. We who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his own good and rather build him up. The idea of gambling, whether it be companies looking to steal from others, whether it be companies using to use manipulative tactics to convince you that it is not that bad, ultimately, we're trying to be a person that robs our neighbor. Whether we believe through skill or knowledge or dumb luck, we are trying to win, and we are hoping that everyone else loses. And the worse they lose, the better off I am. Does that sound like a Christian's attitude? Does that sound like an attitude of one who walks in the light that we talked about this morning? If gambling wasn't a lucrative business, would it be a multi-trillion-dollar company? We're not looking after others. We're not trying to help others. We're trying to exploit them if we join in that kind of machine and that kind of practice. It will enslave us. 2 Peter 2 and verse 19. They promise freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. For whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved. I'm not going to be able just to dip my toe in and to get out and not be hurt. Neither are you, neither is anyone. No, in fact, we're going to try and make others join in if we partake in that vice. We're going to see the attitudes. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 4. Over and over and over. You could see Solomon talk about this. You can see Peter talk about this over and over and over. This becomes the attitude. Even if they themselves realize, well, it's not that bad. I'm not going to advertise it. It's not that great. I recognize the dangers of it. Even most of the people in this world, when they see gambling, especially even in some of the things that have targeted kids in gaming and in YouTube and in Twitch and things like it recently, almost with one accord, they've said, that's terrible. And 50 or over 50% of them still engage in it themselves and don't see the hypocrisy. Because, well, it's not that bad if you can control yourself. It's not going to destroy you if you are watchful. And so I'm going to play around with the viper and pretend that I'm not going to get bit. I'm going to play around with Satan, but I'm not going to fall prey to darkness. 1 Peter 4 and verse 4, with respect to this, they are surprised when you do not join in with them in the same flood of debauchery. They malign you or they mock you. I had friends and I had coworkers that would engage in activities like this. That I would point out, why do you want me to sign up for the pot of who's going to win the Super Bowl? Or why do you want to have me sign up for who's going to win the Derby? Why do you want me to put $10 in as to whatever event is coming up? There was always some pot going on at work. It was WrestleMania, it was basketball, it was football, it was Kentucky Derby, it was who knows what. Just put a little bit of money in. And I'd point out the lives that had been ruined, even among our own coworkers. The attitudes that they had fallen into. The sin and the hurt and the loss of loved ones. Yeah, but it's just $5, it'll be fine. Over 50% of America frequently partake in gambling. It is not a popular thing to call it a sin. In some churches, it is not a popular thing to call it a sin. Among much of the religious world, it is not a popular thing to call it a sin. But everything that it stands for, everything that is involved in, goes against God's word. And that's part of the danger. Like Annie said, the wider it becomes accepted, the harder it is to stand against it. The more people will mock and malign you when you don't partake in it as well, because, well, doesn't everybody? At least a little? The reality is, I'll leave you with Ephesians chapter 4 this morning. We cannot blind ourselves to the dangers of this vice like many other sins. Because if we engage in this sin, like any other, it will cost us our soul. And it might help put a stumbling block before others around us that it cost them their soul too. It might teach others to also blind themselves to this sin. And even if we come back from it, which is the opportunity we'll have in a moment, we recognize this or any other sin to be a problem in our life and we take care of it, we may have helped encourage others to engage in that sin and they don't come back. And that has to haunt us. And that has to be stuck with us. Because of the things that we encouraged that are blatantly sinful. Ephesians 4, beginning in verse 17, reads this way. Now this I say, Paul writes, and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, due to the hardness of their heart. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, to greedy to practice every kind of impurity, because that is not the way that you have learned Christ. I am speaking this morning primarily to Christians. And like I said, I've never preached a sermon specifically on gambling before. It's one that kind of gets brought up frequently as an example, but sometimes we don't really delve into the topic of it. Let us not be blind. Let us not be ignorant. It's everywhere. It is celebrated. It is prevalent. It is a huge part of this and many other countries. It is a sin that has led many astray. It is a sin that ties into worldliness that has led many Christians astray, even after they previously walked in the light. Let us be aware of it. Let us recognize when it's a temptation that comes up in our lives. Let us be ready to combat it, because it's everywhere. And if you're here this morning, we have not talked much about salvation, but the opportunity is here, whether it be this sin and vice or any other. As we talked about briefly this morning in our Sunday morning Bible study, no matter what you have done, no matter what sin there is in your life, it can be forgiven. If you've engaged in that sin, you've been walking in darkness, you've been ignorant, and you want to repent, confess Him as your Lord and Savior, repent and turn away from your sins, and the water is ready, be baptized. If you're here this morning and any sin, not just gambling, even though that has been the focus this morning, has come into your life, has tempted you, has lured you away from Satan, and you recognize that and you understand it, do not leave this morning without taking care of it. Privately in prayer, publicly if it has brought shame upon His church, confess those things. Come forward, let us help you. If you are struggling, please let us know. Let us have the opportunity to show you love, to show you compassion, and to help you in whatever way that we can. Whatever the case may be this morning, if we can help you in any way, please let it be known as together we stand and sing the song that has been selected.